An unexpected passenger. The neon lights of New Shanghai's spaceport district flickered against the rain-slicked streets, casting an eerie glow on the diverse crowd of humans and aliens hurrying through the night. Captain Sarah Chen leaned against her hover taxi, a cigarette dangling from her lips as she watched the scene unfold. It had been a slow night, and she was considering calling it quits when a commotion near the customs office caught her attention. A tall, willowy figure stumbled out of the building, clearly disoriented. Even from a distance, Sarah could tell this was no human. The being's skin shimmered with an iridescent blue hue, and its forearms gesticulated wildly as it argued with a customs officer. Intrigued, Sarah flicked her cigarette away and straightened up. This could be interesting. As she approached, she could hear snippets of the heated exchange. The alien's voice was melodic, but tinged with frustration. "I don't understand. My credits were valid on Centaurid Prime. Why won't your machines accept them?" The customs officer, a stocky man with a permanent scowl, shook his head. "Look, I've told you 3 times already. Your Centaurian credits aren't recognized here on Earth. You need to exchange them at an authorized galactic bank. But it's the middle of the night. Where am I supposed to go?" The alien's large, multifaceted eyes darted around frantically. Sarah cleared her throat, drawing their attention. "Sounds like you could use a ride, friend. I'm heading to the financial district if you're interested." The customs officer shot her a warning look. "Chen, you know the rules. No fares without proper documentation and Earth-recognized currency." Sarah waved him off with a grin. "Relax, Torres. I'm just offering our esteemed visitor a tour of our fair city. No charge." Torres narrowed his eyes but didn't argue further. He turned back to the alien. "Your choice. But remember, you've got 48 hours to sort out your paperwork, or you're on the next ship back to Centaurid Prime." The alien hesitated, its gaze shifting between Sarah and the officer. Finally, it nodded. I would be grateful for your assistance, Earth Dweller." "Name's Sarah," she said, extending a hand. "And you are?" "Zixla," the alien replied, giddily grasping Sarah's hand with one of its upper limbs. Was a cultural attaché from the Centaurian Confederation." As they walked to the taxi, Sarah couldn't help but notice the way Zixla's feet seemed to barely touch the ground, almost as if it was floating. "So, what brings a Centaurian big shot to our humble little planet?" Zixla's skin rippled, changing from blue to a deep purple, a sign of embarrassment, Sarah guessed. I'm afraid there's been a terrible misunderstanding. I was part of a diplomatic mission, but there was an incident. My credentials were revoked, and I was unceremoniously deposited here." Sarah whistled low as she opened the taxi door. "Sounds like you've had one hell of a day. Hop in, and we'll see about getting you sorted out." As the hover taxi lifted off, merging seamlessly into the late-night traffic, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Zixla's story. The alien sat rigidly in the back seat, its 4 hands clasped tightly in its lap. "So, what kind of incident gets a cultural attaché kicked off world?" Sarah asked, keeping her tone casual as she navigated through the glittering skyscrapers. Zixla's skin shifted again, this time to a mottled green. "It's complicated. Let's just say that not all members of the Centaurian Confederation agree on how to approach relations with Earth." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Oh, and where do you stand on that particular issue?" For a moment, Zixla was silent, its multifaceted eyes reflecting the city lights. "I believe that Earth and its people have great potential. You're young as a spacefaring species, yes, but your adaptability, your creativity, it's unlike anything we've seen before. Some of my colleagues find it unsettling." "Unsettling enough to strand you here without a credit to your name?" Sarah pressed. Zixla's lower set of hands clenched. "They fear what they don't understand. I try to argue for more open communication, for cultural exchange programs. But the old guard, they prefer isolation. They believe Earth's influence could destabilize our society." Sarah snorted. Sounds like a bunch of crusty old politicians if you ask me. No offense. To her surprise, Zixla let out a trilling laugh. None taken. You're not wrong. But their fear isn't entirely unfounded. Your species has achieved in centuries what took us millennia. It's impressive and terrifying. As they approached the financial district, Sarah made a split-second decision. Instead of heading for the galactic banks, she veered off, taking a scenic route along the coast. "Ah, Sarah? I believe we've deviated from our intended course," Zixla said, a note of concern in its melodic voice. "Relax, Zix. The banks won't be open for hours anyway. I figured you might appreciate a little tour of the city, unless you're in a hurry to get back to your stuffy politician friends." Zixla's skin rippled with blues and greens. "I suppose not, but I have no way to compensate you for your time." Sarah grinned, catching Zixla's eye in the rearview mirror. "Consider it a cultural exchange. You tell me about life on Centauri Prime, and I'll show you the real Earth, not just the sanitized version they probably showed you in your briefings." As the taxi cruised along the coastline, the glittering expanse of the Pacific Ocean stretching out to their right, Sarah and Zixla fell into an easy conversation. The alien's initial reserve melted away as it described the floating cities of its homeworld, the complex social dynamics of a species with 4 genders, and the challenges of translating Centaurian poetry into human languages. In return, Sarah regaled Zixla with stories of Earth's history, tales of human perseverance in the face of adversity, of scientific breakthroughs born from necessity, and of the indomitable spirit that had propelled humanity to the stars. As the first rays of dawn began to paint the sky, Sarah guided the taxi to a stop atop a hill overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking. The sprawling metropolis of New Shanghai stretched out before them, a testament to human ingenuity and determination. "It's beautiful," Zixla whispered, all 4 of its eyes wide with wonder. Sarah nodded, a proud smile tugging at her lips. "This is what those stuffy politicians of yours are afraid of. This right here. We may be young, we may make mistakes, but we never stop reaching for the stars." Zixla turned to Sarah, its skin shimmering with a new color, a warm, golden hue that seemed to glow from within. "I see now why they feared your influence. Your passion, your drive, it's infectious." Sarah laughed. "Well, stick with me, Zix. By the time we're done, you'll be singing karaoke and eating hot dogs like a true earthling." As they sat there, watching the city come to life beneath them, Sarah couldn't help but feel that this unexpected encounter was the beginning of something much bigger than a simple taxi ride. Little did she know, the arrival of Zixla would set in motion a chain of events that would change the course of human-alien relations forever. The adventure was just beginning, and Sarah Chen, a simple hover taxi driver, was about to find herself at the center of a galactic storm, navigating new waters. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Sarah guided her hover taxi back into the heart of New Shanghai. Zixla sat in comfortable silence, its iridescent skin reflecting the morning light in mesmerizing patterns. The alien's earlier anxiety seemed to have melted away, replaced by a palpable sense of curiosity. "So, what's the plan now, Zix?" Sarah asked, weaving through the increasing morning traffic. "Still want to hit up those galactic banks?" Zixla's skin rippled with a mix of blue and green hues. I'm not certain. My superiors likely expect me to return to Centauri Prime immediately. But after what you've shown me, I find myself reluctant to leave." Sarah grinned. "That's the spirit. Tell you what, why don't we grab some breakfast? I know a place that serves the best dim sum this side of the galaxy. Might as well experience some Earth cuisine before you decide, right?" Before Zixla could respond, a loud rumbling emanated from its midsection. The alien's skin flushed a deep purple. "I apologize. It seems my nutrient sacs are depleted." Laughing, Sarah steered the taxi towards her favorite restaurant. "No worries, my friend. We'll get you filled up in no time." 20 minutes later, they were seated at a small table in Golden Dragon, a hole-in-the-wall dim sum joint that had been a fixture in New Shanghai for over a century. The elderly owner, Mrs. Liu, shuffled over with a steaming pot of tea, her eyes widening slightly at the sight of Zixla before breaking into a warm smile. "Ah, Sarah, you bring new friends, yes? Good, good. I bring special menu for your guest." As Mrs. Liu bustled away, Zixla leaned in close. "Is it safe for me to consume your food? Our physiologies are quite different." Sarah shrugged. "Mrs. Liu's been feeding aliens for decades. Trust me, she knows what she's doing." True to her word, Mrs. Liu returned with an assortment of dumplings, some recognizable to Sarah, others clearly adapted for non-human palates. Zixla cautiously picked up a translucent dumpling with one of its lower hands, examining it closely before popping it into its mouth. The reaction was instantaneous. Zixla's eyes widened, its skin exploding in a riot of colors. By the 7 moons of Centauri, this is extraordinary. Sarah couldn't help but laugh at the alien's enthusiasm. "Wait till you try the egg tarts." As they ate, Sarah noticed a commotion outside. A group of protesters had gathered, carrying signs with slogans like "Earth for Humans" and "No More Alien Influence." She frowned, realizing that not everyone shared her openness to interstellar visitors. Zixla followed her gaze, its skin darkening to a somber blue. "It seems your people are not all as welcoming as you, Sarah." Sarah sighed. "Yeah, we still got our fair share of xenophobes. Change is hard for some folks to accept. But don't let them get to you. They're a vocal minority." Before Zixla could respond, the door to the restaurant burst open. A burly man with a shaved head stormed in, his face contorted with anger. "We don't serve their kind here," he shouted, pointing accusingly at Zixla. Mrs. Liu emerged from the kitchen, her tiny frame belying her fierce demeanor. "You leave. This my restaurant. I serve who I want." The man sneered, taking a menacing step forward. "You old fool. Don't you see? They're infiltrating our society, taking our jobs, corrupting our culture." Sarah stood up, placing herself between the man and Zixla. "Back off, pal. You've got no idea what you're talking about." The tension in the air was palpable. Other patrons watched nervously, unsure whether to intervene. Zixla's skin had gone almost completely black, its forearms wrapped tightly around itself. Suddenly, a young voice piped up. "Mister, why are you so angry?" All eyes turned to a small girl, no more than 7 or 8, who had approached the man. She looked up at him with innocent curiosity. The alien looked scared. "Did you know they have 4 arms? I bet they give really good hugs." The man's anger seemed to deflate in the face of the child's guileless questions. He looked around, suddenly aware of the scene he was causing. With a final glare at Zixla, he stormed out of the restaurant. As the tension dissipated, Sarah turned to Zixla. "I'm so sorry about that. Are you okay?" Zixla's skin slowly returned to its normal iridescent blue. I believe so. Is this common on Earth?" Sarah shook her head. "Not as common as it used to be, but we still got a ways to go. Some people fear what they don't understand." The little girl who had diffused the situation approached their table, her eyes wide with wonder. "Can I touch your arms? They look so cool." Zixla hesitated for a moment before extending one of its lower arms. The girl gently ran her fingers over the iridescent skin, giggling as it changed colors beneath her touch. "It's like magic," she exclaimed. Zixla's skin glowed with a warm, golden hue. Perhaps this is what my people fear. This openness, this curiosity. It is unsettling, yet invigorating. As they finished their meal and prepared to leave, Mrs. Liu approached their table. "You come back any time," she said to Zixla. "Next time, I teach you make dumplings. 4 arms very good for that." Stepping out into the bustling streets of New Shanghai, Sarah could see that the incident had shaken Zixla. The alien's posture was more rigid, its eyes darting nervously from person to person. "Hey," Sarah said softly, placing a hand on one of Zixela's upper arms. "Don't let one jerk ruin your impression of Earth. There's still so much to see and experience." Zixela's skin rippled with uncertainty. "I'm not sure, Sarah. Perhaps it would be best if I returned to Centaurid Prime. My presence here seems to be problematic." Sarah shook her head firmly. "No way. You can't let fear win, Zix. That's exactly what those protesters want. Besides, I thought you came here as a cultural attaché. What better way to understand our culture than to experience it firsthand?" As they walked back to the hover taxi, a commotion near the spaceport caught their attention. A crowd had gathered, their eyes fixed on the massive screens that dominated the plaza. "Breaking news," the announcer's voice boomed. "The Galactic Council has called for an emergency summit in light of rising tensions between Earth and several alien civilizations. Representatives from all major spacefaring species are expected to attend." Sarah and Zixela exchanged glances. "Well," Sarah said with a wry smile, "looks like your stay on Earth just got a lot more interesting." Zixela's skin shimmered with a mix of anticipation and apprehension. "Indeed, it seems the universe has plans for us yet." As they climbed into the hover taxi, neither of them could have predicted the pivotal role they were about to play in shaping the future of human-alien relations. The stage was set for a galactic drama, and Sarah Chen, a simple taxi driver, and Zixela, a disgraced Centaurian diplomat, were about to find themselves at the very center of it all, the Galactic Summit. The following days were a whirlwind of activity. News of the impending Galactic Summit dominated every screen and conversation in New Shanghai. Sarah found herself caught up in the excitement, her hover taxi business temporarily forgotten as she helped Zixela navigate the complexities of Earth's bureaucracy. After a series of tense vid calls with Centaurian officials, Zixela had been reluctantly reinstated as a cultural attaché. The Centaurian Confederation, it seemed, was unwilling to lose face by leaving one of their own stranded on Earth during such a crucial moment in interstellar relations. "I don't understand," Zixela mused as they walked through a bustling market district. Its skin shimmered with confused hues of blue and green. "Yesterday, they were content to abandon me here. Today, they insist I represent our people at the summit. What changed?" Sarah grinned, deftly maneuvering through the crowd. "Politics, my friend. Your bosses probably realize having an inside perspective on Earth might be useful. Plus, it's harder to demonize a planet when one of your own has been living there." Zixela's lower hands fidgeted nervously. "Perhaps, but I fear I may have compromised my objectivity. These past days with you, Sarah, have shown me a side of humanity that conflicts with much of what I was taught." Before Sarah could respond, a large holoscreen above the market square flickered to life. The stern face of Admiral Helena Frost, Earth's most decorated space fleet commander, filled the screen. "Citizens of Earth," Frost began, her voice resonating through the square, "the upcoming Galactic Summit represents a crucial moment in our history. For too long, certain alien civilizations have viewed humanity as a threat, a destabilizing force in the galaxy. They fear our rapid advancement, our adaptability, our sheer determination to reach for the stars." The crowd in the market had gone silent, all eyes fixed on the screen. Sarah felt a knot forming in her stomach. This didn't sound like the usual diplomatic posturing. Admiral Frost continued, her eyes blazing with intensity. "But we will not be cowed. We will not apologize for our progress. At the summit, we will make it clear that humanity is ready to take its rightful place among the great civilizations of the galaxy. And if they won't accept us as equals, we'll show them why they should fear us as rivals." As the transmission ended, a cacophony of voices erupted in the market. Some cheered, pumping their fists in the air, while others muttered worriedly among themselves. Sarah turned to Zixela, only to find the alien's skin had turned a pale, sickly grey. "Zix, you okay?" This is exactly what the isolationists on Centaurid Prime feared," Zixela whispered, its voice trembling. They believed Earth's influence would lead to conflict, and now... Sarah placed a reassuring hand on one of Zixela's upper arms. Hey, it's just tough talk. Frost has always been a hardliner, but the diplomats will smooth things over. That's what the summit is for, right? Zixela didn't seem convinced, but before it could respond, Sarah's comm device buzzed. She frowned at the unfamiliar number before answering. Hello, is this Sarah Chen? A gruff voice asked. Yeah, who's asking? This is Captain Torres from New Shanghai Spaceport Security. We need you and your friend to come in for questioning. Immediately. Sarah's heart raced. What? Why? We haven't done anything wrong. That's not for you to decide, Torres replied. Report to the Spaceport Security Office within the hour, or we'll come find you. And trust me, you don't want that. The line went dead. Sarah looked at Zixela, whose multifaceted eyes were wide with fear. What do we do? The alien asked. Sarah took a deep breath, forcing herself to remain calm. We go. Running would only make us look guilty. Besides, I've got a few contacts in the spaceport. Maybe we can figure out what this is all about. As they made their way to the spaceport, the streets seemed more tense than usual. Humans and aliens alike moved with purpose, their faces etched with worry. The impending summit had everyone on edge. At the security office, they were led to a sterile interrogation room. Captain Torres, the same customs officer who had first encountered Zixela, entered with a scowl. Sit, he commanded, pointing to 2 chairs on one side of a metal table. Sarah crossed her arms, standing defiantly. Not until you tell us what this is about. Torres' scowl deepened. Fine, have it your way. He tossed a datapad on the table. On it was a grainy image of Sarah and Zixela at the dim sum restaurant, taken just before the confrontation with the xenophobic protester. Care to explain why you're consorting with a known Centaurian spy? Zixela's skin flashed a panicked white. Spy. There must be some mistake. I'm a cultural attaché. Save it, Torres interrupted. We've received intelligence suggesting that the Centaurian Confederation has been planting operatives on Earth, gathering information for months. And now, just before the most important diplomatic event in human history, we find you cozying up to one of them. He glared at Sarah. I always knew you were trouble, Chen, but I never pegged you for a traitor. Sarah's mind raced. This had to be a misunderstanding, but how could they prove it? She thought back to the conversations with Zixela, the genuine curiosity and warmth the alien had shown. There was no way Zixela was a spy. This is ridiculous, Sarah said, trying to keep her voice steady. Zixela was stranded here without any credits. I was just helping out. If it was a spy, don't you think it would have been better prepared? Torres leaned in, his face inches from Sarah's. Or maybe that's exactly what they wanted us to think. A perfect cover. Suddenly, the door burst open. A tall, elegant woman in a crisp uniform strode in, her presence immediately commanding attention. Sarah recognized her from countless news broadcasts. It was Ambassador Lyra Valdez, Earth's chief diplomat. That's quite enough, Captain, Valdez said, her voice sharp. I'll take it from here. Torres sputtered, but Ambassador, protocol dictates. Protocol be damned, Valdez snapped. We're on the brink of a galactic incident, and you're wasting time harassing a taxi driver and a low-level diplomat. Leave, now. As Torres slunk out of the room, Ambassador Valdez turned to Sarah and Zixela, her expression softening slightly. I apologize for the overzealousness of our security forces. These are tense times. Zixela's skin had begun to return to its normal blue hue. Ambassador, I assure you, I am no spy. My presence on Earth was unintentional. Valdez nodded. I believe you. In fact, your unexpected visit might be exactly what we need. She looked between Sarah and Zixela, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. How would you two like to help prevent an interstellar war? Sarah and Zixela exchanged bewildered glances. What had started as a simple taxi ride was about to thrust them into the center of a galactic crisis. The fate of Earth's relations with the rest of the galaxy now rested, in part, on the unlikely friendship between a human taxi driver and a Centaurian cultural attaché. As they followed Ambassador Valdez out of the interrogation room, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that their adventure was only just beginning. The Galactic Summit loomed on the horizon, promising to be a crucible that would test not only the bonds between species, but the very nature of what it meant to be part of a wider cosmic community. A common threat emerges. The next few days were a blur of high-level meetings and crash courses in galactic diplomacy. Sarah found herself in a world she never imagined existing, let alone being a part of. Ambassador Valdez had set them up in a secure wing of the new Shanghai Diplomatic Center, where they were briefed on the intricacies of interstellar politics. "I still don't get it," Sarah said, rubbing her temples as she stared at a holographic map of known civilizations. "Why us? I'm just a taxi driver and Zixla. Well, no offense, but you're not exactly high up in the Centaurian hierarchy." Zixla's skin rippled with a mix of amusement and uncertainty. "None taken. I find myself equally perplexed by our sudden importance." Ambassador Valdez paced the room, her usual composure showing cracks of stress. "It's precisely because you're not high-ranking officials that you're valuable. Your friendship, formed organically and without political motives, represents the kind of cross-species understanding we're struggling to achieve on a galactic scale." She paused, fixing them both with an intense gaze. "More importantly, you two have an outsider's perspective. You're not bound by the same political constraints as the rest of us. Sometimes, fresh eyes are exactly what we need to see solutions that have been right in front of us all along." Before either of them could respond, an aide burst into the room, his face pale. "Ambassador, you need to see this." He activated a large view screen, and the room fell silent as they watched the breaking news unfold. A massive explosion had rocked the Centaurian embassy on Mars, leaving dozens injured and the building in ruins. Footage showed chaos as emergency responders from various species worked together to evacuate the wounded. Zixla's skin turned a sickly gray, all four of its hands trembling. "No, this can't be happening." Sarah placed a comforting hand on Zixla's shoulder, feeling the alien's skin ripple beneath her touch. "Hey, it's going to be okay. We'll figure this out." Ambassador Valdez was already barking orders into her comm device. "I want a full report on my desk in an hour, and get me a secure line to the Centaurian High Council. We need to get ahead of this before." She was cut off by another alert. The view screen split to show a new broadcast, this time from an extremist human group calling themselves a First. A masked figure appeared, then a voice distorted. "For too long, humanity has been held back by alien influence. This attack is just the beginning. We will purge our solar system of all extraterrestrial presence and claim our rightful place as rulers of the galaxy." The room erupted into a flurry of activity. Aides rushed in and out, relaying messages and updates. Ambassador Valdez's face was a mask of grim determination. "This is exactly the kind of incident we were afraid of," she muttered. "Extremists on both sides, pushing us towards conflict." Sarah felt a surge of anger. "But it doesn't make sense. Why attack the Centaurian embassy? Zixla's people aren't even the most influential alien civilization we deal with." Zixla, who had been silent since the news broke, suddenly perked up. Its skin began to shift from grey to a more vibrant blue. "Sarah's right. This attack, it's too convenient, too perfectly timed to disrupt the summit." Ambassador Valdez raised an eyebrow. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm not sure," Zixla admitted, "but in my admittedly limited experience with humans, I've observed that they rarely fit neatly into the categories we try to place them in. This Earth First group, something about their message feels off." Sarah nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. It's like they're playing to a stereotype of human xenophobes. It's too clean, too on the nose." A spark of hope flickered in Ambassador Valdez's eyes. "You may be onto something. But we need proof, and we need it fast. The summit begins in less than 48 hours, and if we don't have answers by then, we could be looking at the beginning of an interstellar war. Sarah felt a familiar rush of adrenaline, the same feeling she got when navigating her taxi through New Shanghai's busiest sky lanes. So, what's the plan? How do we investigate this without tipping off whoever's really behind it? Ambassador Valdez smiled for the first time since the attack. That, Miss Chen, is where your unique skills come in. You know this city better than anyone. You have contacts in places that official channels can't reach. And most importantly, you can move around without drawing attention. She turned to Zixela. And you, my Centaurian friend, have a perspective on both human and alien cultures that could be invaluable. Together, you might just be able to uncover what our intelligence agencies have missed. Zixela's skin shimmered with a mix of excitement and apprehension. But where do we start? The galaxy is vast, and we have so little time. Sarah grinned, a plan already forming in her mind. We start where all good investigations begin in New Shanghai, the underground. I know some people who specialize in information that doesn't make it to official channels. If there's a conspiracy, they'd have heard whispers. Ambassador Valdez nodded approvingly. Do whatever you need to do. I'll provide you with emergency clearance and a direct line to me. But be careful. If you're right about this being more than a simple terrorist attack, you could be putting yourselves in serious danger. As they prepared to leave, Sarah felt a mix of excitement and fear. She looked at Zixela, seeing her own emotions reflected in the alien's shimmering skin. Ready for another adventure, partner. Zixela's 4 hands clenched in determination. Indeed, it seems the fate of our peoples rests on our ability to uncover the truth. They stepped out into the bustling streets of New Shanghai, the weight of their mission heavy on their shoulders. The city seemed different now, every shadow potentially hiding a clue, every passerby a possible conspirator. As they made their way towards the seedier districts of the city, Sarah couldn't help but marvel at the strange turns her life had taken. A week ago, she was a simple taxi driver. Now, she was on a mission to prevent an interstellar war, with an alien diplomat as her partner. The neon lights of New Shanghai's underground flickered to life as the sun set, casting an eerie glow on the faces of humans and aliens alike. Sarah and Zixela exchanged a determined look. Whatever forces were trying to drive a wedge between Earth and its galactic neighbors, they were about to discover that the unlikeliest of friendships could be the key to unraveling their plans. The race against time had begun, and the fate of galactic peace hung in the balance. Humanity's ultimate test. The underbelly of New Shanghai was a stark contrast to the gleaming spires and pristine skylanes above. Here, in the shadows of towering arcologies, beings from across the galaxy mingled in a chaotic blend of cultures and species. Sarah led Zixela through winding alleys and dimly lit corridors, the alien's shimmering skin drawing curious glances from the eclectic crowd. Stay close, Sarah muttered, her hand instinctively reaching for Zixela's lower arm. My contact isn't far, but this part of town isn't exactly welcoming to outsiders. Zixela's skin rippled with a mix of anxiety and excitement. I must admit, Sarah, this is quite different from the Earth I've read about in our diplomatic briefs. Sarah chuckled. Yeah, well, those briefs probably don't cover much beyond the shiny tourist spots. This is where the real action happens. They turned a corner and found themselves facing a nondescript door nestled between a Martian fusion restaurant and a shop selling dubious alien artifacts. Sarah knocked 3 times, paused, then twice more. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with holographic displays and antiquated computer terminals. A figure hunched over a central console turned to face them, revealing a face that was more circuitry than flesh. Chen, the cyborg growled, his one human eye narrowing. You've got some nerve showing up here after what happened last time. Sarah grinned sheepishly. Come on, Zeke. That was years ago. Besides, I brought you a peace offering. She gestured to Zixela. Meet my friend. I bet you've never had a Centaurian in your little den of secrets before. Zeke's cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Zixla. Interesting, very interesting. He stepped aside, waving them in. All right, you've piqued my curiosity. What do you want? As the door shut behind them, Sarah quickly filled Zeke in on their mission, careful to omit any classified details. The cyborg listened intently, his mechanical fingers tapping a steady rhythm on the console. A false flag operation, Zeke mused. Wouldn't be the first time someone's tried to pit species against each other for their own gain. But this is big. Galactic war big. Zixla leaned forward, its skin shimmering with urgency. Can you help us? Time is of the essence. Zeke's human eye twinkled. Oh, I can help, but it'll cost you. Information like this doesn't come cheap. Before Sarah could protest, Zixla spoke up. What if I offered you exclusive access to Centaurian encryption algorithms? Our cybersecurity is among the most advanced in the known galaxy. Zeke's mechanical eye whirred excitedly. Now you're talking my language, alien. Deal. For the next few hours, Zeke's fingers flew over holographic keyboards, sifting through terabytes of data from across the solar system. Sarah and Zixla watched in awe as patterns began to emerge. Suspicious financial transactions, encrypted communications, and anomalous ship movements. There, Zeke said suddenly, pointing to a cluster of data points. Your Earth First group, they're receiving funding from off-world accounts. And not just any accounts. These trace back to shell companies with ties to... Well, this is interesting. Sarah leaned in. What? Ties to who? Zeke's face split into a mirthless grin. The Galactic Peacekeepers. Zixla's skin turned a shocked white. That's impossible. The Peacekeepers are a neutral organization dedicated to maintaining balance between species. On the surface, maybe, Zeke countered, but dig deep enough, and you'll find that even the noblest organizations have their secrets. Looks like someone in the Peacekeepers wants to keep humanity in check. What better way than to orchestrate a conflict that proves we're not ready for the galactic stage? Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. We need to get this information to Ambassador Valdez. The summit starts in less than 24 hours. As if on cue, Sarah's comm device buzzed. It was the ambassador, her face etched with worry. Chen, we've got a problem. The Centaurian High Council is calling for immediate sanctions against Earth. They're convinced the attack was sanctioned by our government. If we don't provide proof of our innocence at the summit, we're looking at a full diplomatic breakdown. Sarah's mind raced. We've got the proof, Ambassador. But it's not just Earth that's being set up. There's a bigger play at work here. We need to get to the summit. Ambassador Valdez nodded grimly. I'm sending a secure transport to your location now. But be careful. If what you're saying is true, there are powerful forces that don't want this information to come to light. As they prepared to leave, Zeke grabbed Sarah's arm. Chen, watch your back. This kind of intel, it gets people killed. Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of their discovery. Thanks, Zeke. I owe you one. Just make sure the galaxy doesn't go to war, Zeke replied. I've got too many off-world clients to lose in an interstellar conflict. As they stepped out into the neon-lit streets, a sleek, unmarked hovercar descended from the sky. Sarah and Zixla climbed in, their hearts racing with the urgency of their mission. To the galactic summit, Sarah instructed the AI driver. As the hovercar rose above the sprawling cityscape, Zixla turned to Sarah, its skin a swirl of determination and fear. Sarah, if we're right about this, we're not just preventing a war between Earth and Centauri Prime. We're exposing corruption at the highest levels of galactic governance. Sarah nodded, her jaw set. I know. Pretty wild for a taxi driver and a cultural attaché, huh? Zixla's upper hands reached out, grasping Sarah's in a gesture of solidarity. Whatever happens, I'm glad to be facing this with you, my friend. As the hovercar sped towards the summit venue, the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon. The next few hours would determine the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galactic community. Sarah Chen, once a simple taxi driver, now found herself racing against time to prevent an interstellar catastrophe. The final test of humanity's readiness for the galactic stage was about to begin, and Sarah and Zixla were at the heart of it all. Forging interstellar bonds. The galactic summit venue loomed before them, a massive structure of gleaming metal and pulsing energy fields that seemed to defy the laws of physics. As their hovercar approached, Sarah and Zixla could see the gathering of ships from across the galaxy, sleek Centaurian cruisers, bulbous Arcturian transports, and dozens of other designs they couldn't even begin to identify. "Wow," Sarah breathed, her eyes wide. "I've never seen anything like this." Zixla's skin shimmered with a mix of awe and apprehension. "The fate of the galaxy rests within those walls, Sarah. Are we truly ready for this?" Before Sarah could respond, their hovercar was directed to a secure landing pad. As they disembarked, they were met by a harried-looking Ambassador Valdez. "Thank the stars you're here," she said, ushering them inside. "The situation has deteriorated. The Centaurian delegation is threatening to walk out, and several other species are considering following suit. We need to present you evidence immediately." As they rushed through the winding corridors of the summit building, Sarah couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the diversity of life forms around her. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and compositions moved with purpose, their translator devices creating a cacophony of overlapping languages. They burst into the main chamber just as a heated argument was reaching its climax. At the center of the room, a holographic display showed the aftermath of the Martian embassy attack. Admiral Frost stood at one podium, her face a mask of barely contained fury. Opposite her, a Centaurian diplomat gesticulated wildly with all four arms, its skin a turbulent storm of angry reds and blacks. "And we demand justice for this unprovoked act of aggression," the Centaurian was saying, its words translated into a booming bass. Admiral Frost slammed her fist on the podium. "For the last time, Earth had nothing to do with the attack. We've been set up, can't you see that?" Ambassador Valdez stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Esteemed delegates, please. We have new information that sheds light on the true nature of recent events." All eyes turned to them as Sarah and Zixla were ushered to the center of the chamber. Sarah felt her heart pounding in her chest, acutely aware of the weight of the moment. "Go ahead," Ambassador Valdez whispered. "Tell them what you've discovered." Taking a deep breath, Sarah began to speak, her words amplified and translated for all to hear. She explained their investigation, the suspicious funding of the Earth First group, and the shocking connection to elements within the galactic peacekeepers. As she spoke, murmurs of disbelief and outrage rippled through the assembled delegates. The Centaurian diplomat's skin had faded to a pale, shocked blue. Zixla stepped forward, its voice steady despite the trembling of its lower hands. "I stand here not just as a representative of Centauri Prime, but as someone who has experienced the true nature of humanity firsthand. The Earth I've come to know is not the warmongering threat some would have you believe. It is a planet of diversity, of boundless curiosity, and of unexpected kindness." The alien's gaze swept the room, its multifaceted eyes gleaming. "Yes, humans are different. They advance quickly, adapt rapidly, and challenge our long-held notions of galactic order. But is that not exactly what we need? A fresh perspective to shake us from our complacency?" A tense silence fell over the chamber. Then, slowly, a tall, ethereal being that Sarah recognized as the head of the galactic peacekeepers glided forward. "These are grave accusations," the being said, its voice a melodious whisper. "If true, they represent a betrayal of everything the peacekeepers stand for. We will, of course, launch a full investigation." Admiral Frost's eyes narrowed. "And in the meantime, Earth stands accused of crimes we didn't commit." The Centaurian diplomat stepped forward, its skin now a swirl of contemplative blues and greens. Perhaps we have been too hasty in our judgments. If what your taxi driver and our own diplomat say is true, then we have all been manipulated by forces seeking to divide us. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Valdez seized the moment, her voice ringing with conviction. Fellow delegates, we stand at a crossroads. We can allow fear and mistrust to drive us apart, or we can embrace this opportunity to forge a new era of cooperation. Earth is ready to take its place in the galactic community, not as a threat, but as a partner. As discussions erupted throughout the chamber, Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. She turned to Zixla, a grin spreading across her face. We did it. Zixla's skin glowed with a warm, golden hue. Indeed we did, my friend, though I suspect our adventure is far from over. In the days that followed, the truth of the conspiracy was unraveled. Corrupt elements within the galactic peacekeepers were exposed, and a new framework for interstellar cooperation was established. Earth, with its unique perspective and adaptability, was granted a special advisory role in galactic affairs. As for Sarah and Zixla, their unlikely friendship became a symbol of the potential for human-alien relations. Sarah found herself appointed as Earth's first interstellar cultural liaison, a role that would see her traveling the galaxy, building bridges between species. Zixla, meanwhile, became a respected voice for reform within the Centaurian Confederation, pushing for greater openness and exchange with other civilizations. On their last night on Earth, before embarking on their new adventures, Sarah and Zixla stood atop the same hill where they had watched the sunrise what felt like a lifetime ago. You know, Sarah said, gazing up at the stars, when I picked you up in my taxi, I never imagined we'd end up changing the course of galactic history. Zixla's skin shimmered with amusement. Life, it seems, has a way of taking us on unexpected journeys. I, for one, am grateful for where this particular journey has led us. As they stood there, a human and an alien united in friendship, the vastness of space seemed a little less daunting. The galaxy was entering a new era, one of cooperation and understanding, and it had all started with a simple taxi ride. Sarah grinned, throwing an arm around Zixla's shoulders. Well, partner, ready for our next adventure. Zixla's skin glowed with excitement. Always, my friend. The galaxy awaits. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Sarah Chen and Zixla, the unlikeliest of heroes, prepared to take their first steps into a brighter, more united future for all species. The story of humanity's place in the galaxy was just beginning, and they would be there to help write every chapter.